Happy Saturday, my friends. I've got my coffee. I've got that incense burning. You know what it is? It's a good morning. Today is the 3rd of July and it is my 20th week of uploading videos in a row to YouTube. Yay! Now in these 20 weeks of uploads, there has been one question that has stood out in my comments like nearly every single video without a doubt, and that is, how do I color grade my videos? So in this video, I'm going to talk about two specific things that I take into consideration when I'm color grading my videos. Before I dive into this, I want to talk about the look. Now, the look that I'm talking about is actually the end goal of your color grade. This is something that you should probably have in mind before you create your videos and before you color grade them, because the look that you have really carries the emotion of the video. For example, let me show you some of my favorite creators. Firstly, John. I think John's work is absolutely incredible. The way that he colors his works and mixes that with music really draws you into this world, and it feels like fantasy. There's a real soft look to his work mixed with pastel colors, real like orange tones. It's absolutely beautiful. Secondly, Aaron. Amazing. I'm sure that you've seen this stuff somewhere on the internet. Really beautiful colors, does a lot of work with iPhone, which is amazing to see. The colors, the composition, everything in Aaron's work really create another type of emotion that really brings you into his world. Thirdly, my good friend Peace. Peace is just really good at composing images and he draws the color out so beautifully. Mixed with the sound design on his videos, you can't help but just get sucked into his world as well. Now, the reason I showed you these three examples is because these guys have got a look. This is something that they create consistently between videos, and because of that, it is easy to tell who the creator is behind it. Now, to put myself into the picture, I just want to emphasize that I am not a professional colorist. Now, a great deal of you have asked me how I grade my footage, so I guess the first thing I want to talk about is saturation. Saturation. I'm using Cineprint 16. It is a power grade for DaVinci Resolve, and this helps me create the images that I want to look very quickly. If you don't know what this is, please look it up. There are videos that explain this much better than I ever could. I'll leave a link to a video that explains this just here. However, in terms of the two topics that I want to talk about today, it is not exclusive to DaVinci. Rather, you can do this on any editing software. What I like to do is crank my saturation up to 100% and then work backwards. And typically where I end up is about 60 to 70% saturation. I found that rather creating a super punchy, impactful look, having this desaturated sort of flatter image is sort of the vibe that I want to rock with. However, to add a little bit of spice, typically what I do is I select a specific color, for instance, this red on my beanie, and I will increase the saturation on that. I guess generally, for the clips, what I'm trying to do is create a more desaturated look and then have little aspects to the image that have a bit more saturation, such as this beanie or this sweater or I don't know, something else. Speaking on that, one little thing that I like to do is adjust the hue of green colors. Now when I'm out in nature, especially in Australia, a lot of the bushland and the leaves have a very yellow sort of color. And personally, I do enjoy the more blue-green tones, so I like to adjust that green to slightly make them a bit more blue-green. This is my personal preference. Obviously, you don't need to do that. However, if you do have a personal preference in your tone of color, this is something that you can easily do. Now, I guess this isn't necessarily saturation, but what I like to do is generally create a warmer vibe to my image. Now this I do by adding warmer colors such as like an orange or a yellow to the highlights of the image. The highlights are the brightest part of the image, so I guess in this scene it's probably this screen here, my face surrounding this light source here. And then in the shadows, what I like to do is put a complementary color. So that would be a blue or a green. For instance, this area, I'm gonna push a little bit of blue, and then this creates a little bit of a pop between me, the highlights, and the background shadows. In the previous videos that I referenced, John does this so well. He adds a little bit of an orangey pink to the highlights, and then in the shadows, I guess a complementary color. His color grading is just beautiful.
Tenho esse mar todo, todo pra olhar. Tenho as estrelas infinitas pra contar. Tenho o sol brilhando e os patos nadam em par.
As I mentioned before, I've been doing all of my editing and color grading in DaVinci Resolve. Now, this program is actually relatively new to me. I started this about 2 months ago, and it has been a lot of trial and error figuring out what I like to use, and I guess just understanding the software a bit. When I started using DaVinci, I knew that there was a lot to learn, and I didn't want to be naive about it, so I actually started using today's sponsor of the video, which is Skillshare. Now, if you don't already know about Skillshare, it is the largest online learning community for creatives. There are thousands of courses in different categories, whether you're a filmmaker, you want to learn storytelling, art, painting, whatever it is, there is probably a class for it, and these classes are created by creators for creators. I personally started using Skillshare about half a year ago, and when it came time to learning DaVinci Resolve, I knew that Skillshare offered many courses that I could use to learn this program efficiently. One of the courses that I highly recommend is by Sorge Wes. Sorge Wes. Now, Mr. Wes is a cinematographer and editor that actually produces videos on YouTube as well, and this is where I found him firstly. When I went onto Skillshare searching up DaVinci Resolve courses, he popped up. Now, this was awesome because it was a familiar face that I already knew of, and I trust him because, well, his work on YouTube is excellent. On Skillshare, he has multiple courses discussing how to use DaVinci Resolve, the software itself from start to beginning, and there are a few courses deep diving into color correction and color grading. I actually watched it all because these courses are structured, and structured courses make it easier to understand specific parts and points about, I guess, the topic that you're learning. I felt like I was in school again. I was learning, I was taking notes and really trying to study this software. Now, this was probably one of the best decisions I made before starting to properly edit with this software, because, well, there's a lot of little things that I didn't know of and know how to use, and, well, now I do. Apart from Mr. West, there are other creators that I've found from YouTube that have created courses on Skillshare, such as Heinz. If you have seen Mr. Heinz's stuff on YouTube, then you'd know that he's excellent at storytelling and creating a vibe in his videos. He breaks down his videos, breaks down what he uses, how he edits them, sort of music creation and ambience creation. Definitely another creator that I would suggest watching. With school breaks and slower work schedules, there can be a lot of time on our hands, and I think this is a great opportunity to continually be learning, and for us creatives, I think this is very important. If you're interested in learning from the courses that I mentioned, then please, the first 500 people to use my link, which is in the description, will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Again, thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, and this is the secret sauce to my videos, is contrast. Now, to match with the desaturated look, my personal preference in making my videos look how they look is having less contrast as well. Now, there are 2 steps in this contrast section, and this is how I achieve the look. Now, what I do is I adjust the contrast slider, and it probably ends up between about 0.5 and 0.6. To make sure that I'm not overdoing it, I look at the waveform, and this shows where the highest bright is and the lowest dark is. I don't want to hit 0, which is pitch black, but I also don't want to hit 100, which is pure white. And through this, I get a rough idea of how I want the image to look. Secondly, I use the pivot tool to then fine-tune this adjustment. Now, an easy way to think about this is if you have a graph from 0 to 100, your bottom and top 25 is your highlights and your shadows. The middle 50 is the midtones. Now, the dead center is what changes when you move the pivot. Now, rather than moving the extremities of the graph, what you're doing is you're moving the midtones up and down a little bit as you pivot. I like to think of this as just fine adjustments to the contrast, and what I like to do is just go back and forth between the two until I get an image that I'm relatively happy with. This might take a little bit of time to get used to, but once you do, it's very quick and easy to create that sort of look that you're going for. Now, if you're not using DaVinci Resolve and you don't have the pivot function, there are many other ways to do this. What I like to do is creating S-curves. I find by creating an S-curve, you are flattening the shadows a little bit, you're flattening the highlights a little bit, and you're sort of decontrasting the look that way. I think creating S-curves is probably the easiest way to create a more flat, decontrasty look. And oftentimes after grading my footage, I actually create another S-curve on top of it just to fine-tune the final look. Now, over the last 20 videos that I've made, I've found that saturation and contrast are probably the most important thing in creating my personal look that I like to get. Now, hopefully you can use these ideas to create the look that you want to go for as well. Just to wrap this quick little video up, I hope that these tips help you with your color grading journey, and I hope that they help you achieve the look that you're going for as well. If you want to learn how to use DaVinci Resolve or many other skills, please use my code. You get 1 month free at Skillshare. Join the community. You won't be disappointed. Anyways, I will see you in the next video. Thanks. Peace. I wish coffee never ran out. I ran out like 30 seconds into this video. Cheers.
Did it again, got me on 10, got me on 10, got me on 10, got me on 10. Did it again, got me on 10.